On 21st of April last year, Mark Steyn did a show where he misread a table of data from the UK Health Security Agency as meaning that the boosted were 3 times more likely to die than the unvaccinated. He then offered rebuttal to this just 2 shows later by hosting Jamie Jenkins, formerly from the ONS, who had told him in no uncertain terms on Twitter that he'd been talking nonsense, which, in fairness, he had been. The rebuttal itself was not great. I've managed to extract the most rebutting part of it, which amounts to fully 45 seconds of, in total, a 20-minute segment in which Jamie Jenkins was going out of his way to be as nice as conceivably possible to Mark Steyn, which did somewhat dilute the rebutting aspect of it, but this is the relevant bit.
Nonsense! This claim is nonsense. So I thought we'd get him on the show because we haven't heard enough, actually, from statisticians these last 2 very weird years. And I'm pleased to say Jamie Jenkins said yes, and he seems a fair-minded sort of bloke.
Well, if you, I think one of the things I sent to your producer, I think it was the second table that I sent through to them. What that does in the same report is it looks at the unvaccinated and the vaccinated population there, and you can see in the final column, whilst we talk about the limitations there of kind of deaths within 60 days of a positive test, this is from the same report that the other figures come from. If you take the far end of the table and just look at the deaths within 60 days, you can see that the unvaccinated rate is slightly higher than the triple boosted rate.
So the correction is there, even if you do have to wade through fully 20 minutes of Jamie Jenkins being absolutely nice as pie to Mark Steyn to actually find the correction. However, Ofcom has now found GBNews to be in breach of their regulations on the basis of that show. Ofcom finds the Mark Steyn programme on GBNews in breach of broadcasting rules. Ofcom has today found the Mark Steyn programme, which aired on GBNews on 21st of April 2022, in breach of our broadcasting rules. Specifically, the programme incorrectly claimed that official UKHSA data provided definitive evidence of a causal link between receiving a third COVID-19 vaccine and higher infection, hospitalisation and death rates. That in itself is fair, because what he said was false, so by definition it did mislead. I thought Steyn would get a pass on that actually, because he did offer rebuttal just 2 shows later. But it turns out that if it's not right there and then on the show on the day, that's no good. The thing is, the exact same thing happened on the exact same time scale, but the other way around, pro-establishment, not anti-establishment, on 6th of December 2021, when Dr. Hilary Jones made the following astonishing claim.
Those people who haven't been vaccinated, we'd really love you to think again and be vaccinated, because 90% of people in hospital are unvaccinated right now with COVID.
That's a really figure that we have to really concentrate on. 90% of people in hospital have not been vaccinated.
That was a really figure, whatever a really figure is, which we have to really concentrate on, and she repeats it. And it was false. This is the relevant period, and you can see the unvaccinated are only 37%, not 90%. In other words, the opposite was the reality. Not a huge majority, but quite a small minority. So then, Lorraine hit with over 1,300 Ofcom complaints as Dr. Hilary Jones implores unvaccinated to get jabbed. On Monday, the ITV presenter spoke with the television doctor about the latest COVID figures and the booster rollout plan in the fight against the Omicron variant. Dr. Hilary implored unvaccinated people to get jabbed, as he claimed 90% of people currently in hospital have yet to have their vaccine. And Ofcom eventually responded thuswise. Ofcom's decision regarding complaints about Dr. Hilary Jones' comments on ITV's Lorraine. The information was broadcast in an episode of Lorraine at 9 AM on 6 December 2021 and attracted 3,833 complaints from viewers. Having carefully assessed these complaints against our broadcasting rules, we have decided not to launch a formal investigation, but have issued guidance to ITV. In reaching our decision, we took into account that the programme was live and that a clarification was broadcast on 8th of December. This provided viewers with the source of the statistic and clarified that it related to patients patients receiving the most specialist care in intensive care units rather than the proportion of unvaccinated COVID-19 patients in hospital. An Ofcom spokesman said, "This programme incorrectly referenced the proportion of unvaccinated COVID-19 patients in hospital. We have told ITV that greater care should be taken by trusted medical experts when presenting facts and figures on public health issues. However, given official statistics and research have consistently shown that vaccination against COVID-19 offers greater protection against serious health consequences, we do not consider that the error was sufficient to materially mislead viewers on this main point of discussion." A 90% unvaccinated claim against 37% reality intended to scare the unvaccinated into getting vaccinated and so avoid going to hospital was not misleading, even though it misled as intended. Section 2. Factual programmes or items or portrayals of factual matters must not materially mislead the audience. And not only does Ofcom not find ITV in breach of their code, they don't even investigate. So, anti-establishment claim followed by rebuttal 2 shows later. Breach of broadcasting rules. Pro-establishment claim followed by rebuttal 2 shows later. We have decided not to launch a formal investigation. And when I complained about this, I didn't even get a response.
Well, what's really excellent is, and it's a statistic that I think should be shouted from the rooftops, is that after 12 days from the first vaccination of the AstraZeneca vaccine, you are 100% effective against hospitalisation and death.
That was on the 4th of January 2021, and of course no rebuttal. 9 weeks later, why countries around the world are suspending use of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine. It's the last thing public health officials want to see in the midst of a pandemic. More than 2 months after the pharmaceutical giant AstraZeneca and Oxford University Science released their COVID-19 vaccine, countries in Europe and elsewhere are pausing its use amid discovering reports that a small number of recipients have experienced blood clots, some of them fatal. Ofcom crickets. Section 2. Factual programmes or items or portrayals of factual matters must not materially mislead the audience. So I think I'll have to do another video advising people to complain about that nonsense claim again, just to see them ignore it again. This was my full original complaint about that This Morning lunacy, which was ignored. And what about Dr. Ranj Singh on the same ITV morning show?
One dose of either vaccine gives you probably around at least 70% protection, but what people don't realise is that it gives you almost 100% protection against being hospitalised and dying from COVID. And that's the statistic that people really need to know.
Same 100% claim, same lie, and of course no rebuttal. Same Ofcom turning a blind eye in spite of factual programmes or items or portrayals of factual matters must not materially mislead the audience. That's 3 very public false claims, one resulting in Ofcom offering guidance and the other 2 nothing whatsoever. Mark Steyn's claim was false, and this happens all the time. People get hold of some form of official information, government this, peer-reviewed that, ONS this, CDS that, and they think that somehow its official status makes it impossible for them to misread, and then they go ahead and misread it. This happens all the time, and this idea is always false. But Ofcom's regulation only points one way. It only points to anti-establishment content. If it's pro-establishment misleading information, then Ofcom appears to not regulate, which makes Ofcom a non-regulator. If you are a regulator who only regulates in one direction, you are not a regulator. And that is 3 false claims that Ofcom not only didn't see fit to consider breaches, they didn't even see fit to investigate in any form, even though they materially misled the audience. I've put a little montage of those 3 clips on Twitter. The link is in the description. Feel free to share it if you want to.
90% of people in hospital are unvaccinated right now with COVID.
After 12 days from the first vaccination of the AstraZeneca vaccine, you are 100% effective against hospitalisation and death.
But what people don't realise is that it gives you almost 100% protection against being hospitalised and dying from COVID. And that's the statistic that people really need to know.